like, oh, this team is going to pay for itself. But the infrastructure isn't set up for the team to pay for themselves. The foundation isn't strong for where that team can pay for themselves. And so then you are struggling to make payroll and you're stressed because there's not enough revenue. And then you have all of these people who are saying, when am I going to get paid? Welcome to CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. I'm your host, Brandy Mabra. It's time to show up as a confident leader to create a practice and life you love. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of CEO Conversations, the private practice podcast. It is Brandy Mabra here. And today we're going to be diving in about how to get your team to pay for themselves. And we're going to do it with a tiered approach. So we're going to start first with the admin level, and then we're going to work all the way through to leadership. So if you are in the camp of, I don't have a clinical director or a COO or an operations director or any kind of leadership team, this episode will be for you. And then if you are, where I have a whole leadership team, this episode is going to be for you too. So sit tight. All right. So when we think about the team that pays for themselves, one of the biggest questions I get is around like admin support. Well, they're not generating revenue is what I hear. And so there's two ways that any kind of team member, whether they're contractor or if it's an actual W-2 employee, for how they will pay for themselves. It's in the healthcare world, it's either a service provider. So it's some type of person who is able to provide a service inside of your practice that is going to generate revenue. You guys know that. So that is a revenue generator. And then you have admin support, where they are paying for themselves because you are paying them to buy back your time as the owner of the practice or as the CEO of the practice. Where people get stuck with this is they will hire providers till the cows come home because they think like, oh, if I bring in this provider, I'm going to make more money. And what I see, one of the biggest mistakes that I see is that there's no admin support for the amount of providers that you have. And now you're taking a very highly specialized credential in telling them to call patients back or to follow up or to do some of the admin support, collect copays and money and, to do some of the admin support, which is honestly a waste of their time. And if you start to add up those hours that they could potentially spend on this, then they could be seeing clients and patients. So it's important for you to understand when you have an administrative person inside of your practice, you are giving them money where you're buying back the time of your providers and you're also buying back the time for yourself. That's how admin people pay for themselves. The other piece of this is that when we're thinking about leadership, sometimes people will not hire, like I'm not going to hire this manager or I'm not going to hire this person. And they will try to milk out a skill set of a really nice admin person who maybe has a higher level skill set and try to treat them like a manager who has leadership experience. And sometimes you can't do that. And so sometimes you have to bite the bullet in order to have highly skilled people on your team, and you have to pay these people in order for you as the CEO to put your practice in the best position possible to make more money, to set up the future of your practice, and to make sure that you're able to have revenue continuously coming in. So when we think about leadership teams pay for themselves in a different type of way. Leadership teams pay for themselves by making sure that the leadership of the practice is sound and that the performance of the practice is sound. And that way you can go off and you can actually have conversations, whether if it's getting additional contracts or if it's looking at other networking opportunities or joint venture opportunities for you to network with potential hires that could be part of your practice, for you to have key partnerships that are going to be built for future pipeline or future business. Like there's a higher level of sophistication if you wanted to go and speak on a stage, if you were doing more brand awareness for your practice, like all of those are higher revenue generating activities, but it sets you up and it sets the future up for the practice. Your leadership team is there to continuously provide the leadership so that way your team still knows that there's accountability, expectations, KPIs are being met, your team understands the assignment. If there's any questions and there's somebody there that can answer those questions, And that's how your leadership team pays for themselves. Because if you have a leadership person, they should be in a place to actually lead. Sometimes what happens is people hire leadership and they're not really leading. You're still doing a bulk of the leading. And that's normal. Like when you think about the CEO seat, the CEO is there not to be aloof or not to be present, but really they're there to give the vision. They're there to make sure that there's a calmness within the business, that this is where we're moving. This is what our mission is. This is what our vision is. This is the direction. This is our focus is. This is why we're here. They're there to make sure that there's engagement and buy-in for the team that's working there. Your leadership team is there really to be a filter, but also to echo what that vision is, what that mission is, what those focuses are, and then to help with the execution of it. If you have a leader and you're having to supplement that person's leadership, then you really just have a high-level owner and almost sometimes a doer, right? And so there's 3 types of employees or team members inside of your practice. So there is the doer, which is the one who is just doing task. What I find is sometimes people think that their practice can run without them because like, oh, I have a scheduler. So my practice can just run without me. Okay, that's great. That's level 1. That's baseline. Then there is the owner, where if you are setting up somebody, like using that same analogy, you now have somebody who is not only with the scheduling, but also making sure that schedule gets filled, also having conversations with the providers, also maybe reaching out to other referral partners, saying, hey, send us patients. And you don't necessarily have to worry about that schedule being filled because they're owning that schedule. They're owning that task. You're not having to tell them, hey, call X, Y, and Z, or hey, have a conversation with this provider, or hey, do that. They're just naturally doing it because they're owning it. Then you have the leader. The leader is the one who is actually leading. They are the ones who are setting the tone. They're the ones who are, again, putting the vision that you have and putting it inside of the practice and leading the people for what success looks like. Also leading the people when they're not being, not holding up their end of the bargain. So they're having difficult conversations if need be. They're holding people accountable to KPIs. They are making sure that the performance of the practice is right on point. And so when you have those 3 types of people inside of your practice, at every stage of business growth, there's a different type of person that you need. So I always think it's interesting where people will say like, oh, I have a leader. It sounds good. I have a whole operations director. I have a COO. And then there's still the one who is in the weeds of the practice doing all of the things. So it's important for you. And also from the flip side of this, sometimes people will hire all of these team members thinking like, oh, this team is going to pay for itself. But the infrastructure isn't set up for the team to pay for themselves. The foundation isn't strong for where that team can pay for themselves. And so then you are struggling to make payroll and you're stressed because there's not enough revenue. And then you have all of these people who are saying, when am I going to get paid? Right? And so there is a big difference. When you really have a team that pays for themselves, they're paying for themselves in time, they are paying for themselves in energy, they are paying for themselves in money, and you have to have all 3 for it to work. This goes back to if you're sitting here thinking like, oh, I have a team, but they are not the best performers, or there's a couple of them that do really well. So when we think about the 3 types of team members from a performance, there's the lower performer, the middle performer, and the higher performer. The high performers should be, when we think about checking the boxes of paying for themselves, they're paying for themselves in time, they're paying for themselves in energy, and they're paying for themselves in money. The lower performer is more times than not checking the box in any of them. And then the middle performer is maybe checking the box in a couple of them, right? And so when we think about how much energy can go into a lower performer, how much stress, like there are people who stay up at night thinking about the lower performers, or where they get frustrated, or where they're like, man, I keep saying the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again, and they're tired. And so that could be a lower performer, somebody who makes your job harder as a CEO and doesn't make your job easier as a CEO. Those team members do not pay for themselves. So again, the best teams that really pay for themselves are hitting the marks when it comes to time, energy, and money. So they're saving you time. They are light on the energy because they just are owning, they're leading, they're doing at a high level. And then the last part is money. They're helping you make more money because either they're helping you generate it through like a provider, or they're allowing for you to go out and expand the practice in order to make more money. So as you're making these different hires, so when you hire your admin team, then how you're leading them initially, where you're just delegating tasks. As you work yourself through the growth stages, when you get to a place of actually hiring leaders, then you're putting yourself in the position of doing more coaching and mentoring and training, because you're having to train them up or level them up to where now they're comfortable being leaders within your practice. So at each stage of business growth, and the reason why people are like, oh, I'm good, and then they get to the next stage of business growth and they're like, oh, I'm not too good. It's because at every stage, your leadership and how you show up in your practice is different. If you've never led at a higher level, if you've never led leaders, then that's going to be challenging for you. If you're sitting there where you're just now hiring, so if you have a team of 8 people and those are your first hires ever, that's going to be challenging for you, right? And so it's important for you to understand how you show up in the practice today is not how you're going to show up in the practice probably this time next year. As long as you continue to grow, your practice is going to evolve, it's going to change, it's going to be refined. And how you show up as a leader also has to change, and it also has to be refined. So you can't be the same leader you are today and think that you're going to be able to hit your goals this time next year, especially if you want to make more money, if you want to continue to grow and scale, if you want to go after more, make more impact, then you have to level up your leadership. Which is why, if you're struggling with this, then I want to make sure that you know about my Own Your CEO Status Masterclass, which is happening. You can see the link in the show notes. So we're doing this to make sure that you're set up for success, so that way you can get out of the weeds of your practice. If you have a leadership team, how do you need to really lead that leadership team? If you are wanting to expand your services, if you want to make more money, you want more time, you want more freedom, then those are all the conversations that we're going to be having inside of that masterclass. So do not sit there. If you're listening to this and you're struggling, or you're like, man, I was good last year, or I was good even sometimes last quarter, and now things are different, things are shifting, get help, definitely get help. So see the link in the show notes, because I'm definitely available. And the masterclass is going to be a 60 minutes. So it's quick, easy, it's a light lift. There will not be any replays because I always get those questions, but I would love for you to join me, so you can see the link and register today. So again, thank you for listening, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the episode and it empowers you as the CEO of your practice. If you enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you subscribe, share the message, and leave a review. If you want more information and support in growing and scaling your practice, click the link in the show notes to take advantage of our free resources or apply to work with me directly. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.